Welcome into the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Thursday, September 26th, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We got the best insider in the entire country, Steve Wiltfong. This is his show, and we are going to hit on the biggest developments heading into another huge weekend of recruiting. So sit back the next 20 to 30 minutes and get caught up on all things recruiting. But first, guys, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. You don't want to miss anything, so jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, I know there's some of you out there that have been thinking about signing up for On3. Well, let's get you on board for just $1. That's right, I can get you to On3 for just $1. Go to on3.com, use promo code FONG1. If you're a Wiltfong Whip Around listener, just use promo code FONG1 and you can get to On3 for just $1. All right, let's get to it. Bring in the birthday boy, Steve Wiltfong. Today is your 32nd birthday. You're looking sharp.
I'm feeling 42, Josh.
Well, you look great, Steve. Happy birthday. Hope today is a very special day for you.
Well, it's certainly going to be a special weekend on the recruiting trail for some of these programs, hosting huge recruiting weekends. A lot of hoopla around Alabama and all the five-stars coming to their campus. Maybe the second biggest recruiting weekend, is happening at UCF. So excited to talk about what Gus Malzahn and company are doing later in the show. And then obviously I was just at Miami this week for my official visit with the Hurricanes. That was a lot of fun. Miami's ripping and roaring going into their ball game Friday night against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, let's talk Miami recruiting right now. You were in Coral Gables this week. You took a midweek official visit. It was only about 24 hours. You were on the campus in Coral Gables. You got to sit down with Mario Cristobal on a very special day. It was his birthday. A couple Libra brothers sitting down together. You got to talk behind the scenes of kind of what makes this Miami program go. Give me your thoughts after the visit on Mario Cristobal, on their recruiting approach, and just how Miami's building this roster.
Well, I think it's just the chemistry that they have in the building as a coaching staff led by Mario Cristobal, his on-field coaches, his personnel department. Everybody's pulling in the same direction. Everyone dedicated to Miami football, recruiting, transfer portal, player development, scheme. And you're seeing the results on the field. Mario Cristobal called the 2023 and 2024 recruiting classes the two best in program history. And then they've certainly added to that with major recruiting wins out of the transfer portal. Cam Ward, Tyler Barron, Damian Martinez right off the top. So from a roster construction standpoint, they've had a plan and a vision. When they arrived in December of 2021, earmarking this season as the one for them to really take off. And so far, so good. But Mario Cristobal was quick to point out all the people giving the program praise, or most of the people giving the program praise, were also some of the same people that were dogging the program after the Georgia Tech game last year. And you're only as good as your last ball game. And they have another big test against Virginia Tech, a veteran football team, on Friday night. There's going to be some elements from the weather going on in that ball game. But look, this program is obviously extremely dedicated to talent acquisition, and it's led by Mario Cristobal. No head coach is more involved in the relationship part of recruiting and probably not more involved in the evaluation part of recruiting as well. I know that at the end of each night, he watches about 16 to 20 prospects and probably doesn't even get a chance to get to that till about 11 p.m., watches recruits till about 1, 2 in the morning and does that every night and loves it. He says he doesn't have any hobbies. He used to do some UFC stuff when he was younger. Now he goes fishing twice a year. But he said it's always been about the Canes for him, even when he worked elsewhere. So he's at his dream job right now. And so anytime he's in that office, he loves being there. And they're getting new facilities too, Josh. $400 million being poured into a brand new facility that they're going to start building after the season. So once they add that to their arsenal on the recruiting trail, they're already recruiting at a high level, so I don't know how much better they can recruit, but certainly being able to point to a new 7-story state-of-the-art recruiting structure with a golf simulator in there amongst many other amenities that they're going to have for players and coaches. It's going to be fantastic.
One of the things I've noticed about this roster under Mario Cristobal is how he's built from the trenches up, right? And it's kind of like you said, it's built up to this season. So far, so good. But did he speak about the importance of recruiting the offensive and defensive lines at Miami?
Well, that's been his calling card. That's how they rebuilt Oregon into a championship contender out there in the Pac-12. And then at Miami, the first big recruiting class that they signed was highlighted by the best offensive line haul in the country. Last year's class was certainly one of the best defensive line classes in the country. A lot of young guys that haven't become household names from a mainstream college football standpoint, but a lot of guys that are really pushing this roster. They've created a lot of internal competition because of the way that they've recruited young guys, and guys like Justin Scott are pushing guys like Tyler Barron, and you're seeing the results on the field. Justin Scott, of course, being a 5-star defensive lineman that flipped from Ohio State to Miami last cycle, and the product is this is the number 2 offense in the country. Cam Ward, their quarterback, is one of the leading Heisman contenders. He's got a chance to hear his name called early in the NFL draft. And then this defense, which is especially stout against the run, ranks number 10 nationally.
All right, let's hit on some of these top targets for Miami moving forward. Right at the top, you got DJ Pickett and Aiden Andy, a pair of cornerbacks, elite cornerbacks, committed to LSU. But hey, Miami's already gone to that commit list and taken corner Jabari Antoine, who's from the state of Louisiana, off, and now he's committed to Miami. So do they have a shot at flipping either one of these LSU standouts?
Well, these guys are having dialogue with Miami, and anytime that you continue to conversate with Mario Cristobal and that Hurricane staff and the track record of major flips that they've had, Jordan Lyle, their talented true freshman running back who they flipped from Ohio State, you don't count them out for anybody. Am I going to predict that these guys are going to be in the Miami class today? No. Would I be surprised if DJ Pickett is in the Miami class come December 4th in the early signing period? That is also a no. Aiden Anning, I think that's probably more of an uphill climb with him being a Louisiana kid. But Miami was one of the first programs to identify him as a potential national recruit. That's a relationship they've had for a long time. And then certainly DJ Pickett, all the Miami connections to his family. He's going to be back for the Florida State game. So we'll continue to see what happens. He's got 2 more visits planned for LSU. He was at LSU last weekend. LSU's doing everything right. They did everything right to close that recruitment at the end of the summer. And he still has a lot of love for LSU, but Miami's there intriguing and they're rolling.
All right, up next, you see Kellen Wiley. He's at Armwood. He's an on-3 outlier. The rest of the industry has him as a 3-star. On3 has him as a top 154 star. So Kellen Wiley, I would say Miami has the inside track on him. Now I want to move down to wide receivers, Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown, a pair of elite in-state wide receivers that are committed to other programs. Vernell Brown, UF legacy, committed to the Gators, while Dallas Wilson is committed to the Oregon Ducks and has so for about a year and a half now. Dallas Wilson has been pledged to the Ducks. So do you think that if Miami's season continues in the long game, not, this weekend, but could they foreseeably flip one of these in-state elite wideouts?
Well,
I guess you could put Jamie French on that list too. Why not?
Sure. And let's put Joshua Moore on that list as well. Tyler Williams committed to Georgia. They're having dialogue with as well. Joshua Moore is my best bet from that group. I actually think that that's trending in a great direction for Miami to ultimately flip Joshua Moore from Florida. Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown, I think, are going to be tough flips. I would say Vernell maybe even tougher than Dallas. Dallas committed to Oregon, Vernell committed to Florida, all the Florida ties in Vernell Brown's family. Jamie French is a bit of a wild card, right, in the sense that, I don't have him on flip watch right now, but just the way his recruitment has gone, former Alabama commit, Ohio State led once, Texas grabbed the lead in the spring, then they battled LSU and Miami to get him. That one's had some fluidity to it, so we'll see what happens. Miami continues to have dialogue with Jamie French, the Texas commit. So if you're asking me to kind of rank those receivers on their flip potential, Joshua Moore, I actually think he'll ultimately end up in Miami's class. Then I would go maybe, and then there would be a drop off, but they're alive for Jamie French, Dallas Wilson, Tyler Williams, Vernell Brown. I would rank those 4, but it's not close between 1 and 2.
Yeah. All right. Up next on the list, we got TJ Alford. So if there is that traditional Ohio State-Miami flip in December, I would watch linebacker TJ Alford. The interesting name on here, though, is Solomon Thomas. He's a 5-star offensive lineman committed to Florida State. Florida State really struggling, and there's some teams that are trying to get their hooks in Solomon Thomas, Miami being one of them. Solomon Thomas right now, though, saying all the right things about his Florida State commitment, but this is a big fish out there that teams are trying to get. Do you think Miami, in the end, is going to be making a play for Thomas?
Well, I just think they're viewing Solomon Thomas the same way they're viewing Ben Hanks Jr., top 100 cornerback committed to Florida, as this long game marathon, see what happens as their process continues, because Solomon Thomas is saying the right things about Florida State, and I think he genuinely feels that way about the Noles. He's excited about playing for Mike Norvell, Coach Alex Atkins and that staff. He was at Florida State last weekend, saw the Seminoles beat Cal, get off the snide. So Miami's just kind of hanging around and seeing what happens with some of these guys, and the real recruiting is going to come in November. And we know that Miami is well positioned. Their infrastructure is off the charts. Their coaches' dedication to recruiting is off the charts. The way they're playing right now is off the charts. So we'll see what happens when these final conversations happen with these prospects. And Solomon Thomas is one that Miami is going to make a run at late. But right now, I still would have him sticking with Florida State.
All right. We've seen Mario Cristobal get aggressive late without having a monster season. I mean, if Miami has the season that we think they can and maybe potentially run the table, be a one-loss program, I mean, what's the ceiling for this Miami class in 2025?
Well, they've had 2 straight top 10 classes. They're looking for a third, potentially another top 5 class with all the names we mentioned. And Derry Norris is a defensive lineman currently committed to Georgia Tech that they would also love to add. I think that we could see Miami move into the top 10 for sure. And then if they get real crazy, if this gets wild down the stretch, maybe they even pop into the top 5 if they can flip a DJ Pickett and a Joshua Moore and players of that caliber. But I think this is a coaching staff that has a lot of continuity, a personnel staff off the field led by Dennis Smith and Stephen Field that does a great job, that's dedicated to Coach Cristobal. Again, the infrastructure is going to be there for Miami to be competitive in an NIL space. So I just think that Miami is going to be a program to watch down the stretch, and I don't expect much turnover on their coaching staff. We're not hearing much about their coordinators and head coach jobs right now, but that's soon to come if they keep it rolling.
All right, Miami fans, huge Miami segment to open the Wiltfong Whip Round. Talk to us, comment section below. Who is your top ad if Miami can run the table, and where do you think this class ultimately finishes? And also, comment section below, how about a happy birthday for my guy Steve and Mario Cristobal? Drop them down below, a bunch of Lieber brothers. All right. Let's talk some Tennessee recruiting as the Volunteers are pushing for a top 5 class. Big news last weekend. Isaiah Campbell put himself back on the market, decommitting from Clemson. He's a top 50 defensive lineman, and our own Chad Simmons has some immediate intel that he will be taking an official visit. Not Chad, but Isaiah Campbell will be taking an official visit October 18th to Tennessee. So, Steve, the way I kind of see it, did Isaiah Campbell decommit for Tennessee? I mean, I know UNC is also involved, but is this kind of an open and shut case here? Or do you think Isaiah Campbell waits it out and takes more visits?
I think Tennessee's well positioned, as does our colleague Chad Simmons, but this wasn't just a flip. He's going to go through his process, and other schools are getting involved. Ohio State is a program that's certainly going to swing and try and get him to campus. There was a time where it looked like he was going to take an official visit to Ohio State as well. And when you're committed to Clemson, you're not allowed to visit elsewhere. So him decommitting from Clemson allows him to go through his process the way that he wants to. And Tennessee is definitely one of the front runners. North Carolina is a program that's traditionally done a good job recruiting the defensive line and landing their top targets. And like I said, Ohio State's in there. But I like where Tennessee's positioned today, but it's not a done deal. They'll have to battle. But we've seen them win some elite prospects this cycle, and this one's starting to trend nicely for them going into his upcoming visit to Knoxville.
All right, absolutely. Now, one of the themes that we've been talking about this season is Tennessee wants another linebacker. They have a lot. They don't need a whole lot more, but they do want another linebacker. So who are you watching? Because there's a couple flip targets. You got Jaden Perlotti at USC, Austin Howard, who's an in-state guy that committed to Mississippi State. Either of those two names, do you think there's a shot there for Tennessee to flip one?
Absolutely. I think they got a really good shot to flip either of those guys.
Okay.
The question is, which one's it going to be? Because there's only one spot left. And I wouldn't be surprised if another name or two emerged on the board. Look, Tennessee, they got the #1 defense in the country right now, led by Tim Banks. William Inge, their linebackers coach, is one of the best recruiters in America. Jaden Perlotti at one point looked like a Tennessee lean and then just kind of quickly jumped in the fold for USC. His recruitment's been a very fluid one, committed to Georgia for a long time, but looked like he was going to flip to Florida State at one point, then Auburn, then Tennessee, actually does flip to USC. Yeah. But Tennessee is very warm in that one. And then Austin Howard's an in-state recruit that's committed to Mississippi State right now, but things have been picking up between him and the Vols, and I could certainly see him wearing the checkered orange on the next level as well. So those two guys, one spot, maybe someone else emerges. Tennessee, this train is rolling right now, and if you want to get on it, you might have to jump in sooner rather than later, or you will miss your ride.
Huge recruiting weekend in Tuscaloosa as Alabama and Georgia, two titans of the SEC, face off. And we'll start with the commit, Steve. There's going to be some important ones on campus. And the names I'm mentioning here, Michael Carroll, Caleb Cunningham, Dijon Lee, Anthony Rogers, Dawson Merritt, they're all tied commitments, but it's important that they're on campus because they're also all talking at some level with other programs. Who stands out to you amongst these tied commitments that are going to be on campus?
Well, I think Alabama's in great shape to keep most of these guys, if not all, in the fold ultimately. Some will have different challenges than other. Ole Miss, we know, is going to make a run at five-star receiver Caleb Cunningham. They're already starting to build in that direction. They got him on campus for the opener. Auburn and LSU trying as well. Bama's done a great job recruiting their top targets at the position. Latsir Brooks committed to Crimson Tide. He's had a state historical record season for touchdowns in New Jersey last year, and he's off to a fantastic start this year. But Caleb Cunningham, getting him back, getting everybody around Keelan Russell. He's the Pied Piper, right? The five-star quarterback from Duncanville. He's having a great start to his senior season. Guys want to play with elite quarterbacks. The way Keelan Russell carries himself as a leader, the reasons why he chose Alabama, the stage, the competition, being able to potentially win a Heisman Trophy, all those things, his belief in Alabama is going to be contagious with these recruits. So Keelan Russell coming back to campus, spending time with Dijon Lee, who's also having a great start to his senior year, talking to Oregon now more per our Oregon beat writer Max Torres. Georgia's not going away on Dijon Lee, but I think he sticks. Dawson Merritt, he's one of Matt Rule in Nebraska's overall targets. He's been in Nebraska a couple times, including the Colorado game, since he committed to Alabama, but I think that's still a little uphill for the Huskers. Anthony Rogers, running back, slot receiver, just kind of gadget guy, committed to the Tide. Ohio State, I think, is still working to get him on campus for an official. They're a factor. But Anthony's sisters go to Alabama. He's been to every home game this year, so I think they're going to end up being good there. Michael Carroll got Miami and USC warm, going to visit USC. But again, I think he's about 95% locked in with Alabama, if not more. So Daryl Johnson's kind of the one that I look at in Alabama's class and say, hey, anything can happen with Duke Johnson. And he could stick as well, but you got Florida State, Georgia Tech, Auburn, some other programs flirting with him at this point. But huge opportunity on the field. You know, obviously, I try not to put too much stock in the outcome of games and recruitments, but this is an opportunity for Kalen DeBoer, first-year head coach, first major home game in prime time at night. To just get a big win against their conference rival, Georgia, and how that could resonate with recruits. There are so many elite names in 2025 and 2026 and 2027 this weekend. For Kalen DeBoer, he's only lost 12 games as a head coach his entire career. A win here would be phenomenal would be one of the biggest wins in Kalen DeBoer's head coaching career, and he's taken teams to college football playoffs and beyond at various levels.
Yeah, and there's going to be some big-name headliners on campus, none other than 5-star plus defensive lineman Justice Terry. Is this visit important, or is it kind of another data point along his recruitment timeline? And I say that because Justice Terry also heavily involved with Georgia. So, I mean, he could be there checking out Georgia just as much as he is Alabama. How do you see this visit for Justice Terry?
I think he's a pretty big lean to Georgia, but he's been to Alabama a couple times. It took his official in the summer, already been to one game. This is a return trip. His family has regular dialogue with the Crimson Tide. He does as well. If there is a program that's a sleeper in this recruitment, one that could challenge Georgia, it's Alabama. I think they got to win this game. Alabama's got a big need on the defensive line. They're bringing in several other 2025 defensive linemen that they're keeping tabs on. They haven't offered yet, but they got the body types. They're having good senior years. So they're going to go on more defensive linemen this cycle, but Justice Terry's obviously the top of the board player that they would love to add, and a guy that could be an instant impact player for them next year at the position.
All right. Now, looking at the big name headliners list, you got two from Michigan. You got Ivan Taylor and Alex Olish. Who do you think the Tide have a better shot at flipping?
I'd say Ivan Taylor right now, because I think they have a shot to flip Ivan Taylor. Andrew Olish, it's still developing. Ivan Taylor, this is very real. He's been to Alabama before. Yeah. There was a time when he was committed to Notre Dame where it looked like Alabama was going to be the best bet to flip him, but he ended up going with Michigan. But the communication with Ivan, the communication with both Ivan's parents has never died down. They're very comfortable with Alabama, and I could see him in the Crimson Tide class in December.
All right, then we got foot targets Mason Dunn and Tavius Richardson. Mason Dunn, Ole Miss, Richardson, USF. But the interesting one is athlete Derek Smith, committed to Auburn, already flipped from Alabama to Auburn, back on campus. Derek Smith, is he still considering Alabama?
I think he is. He committed to Auburn when Auburn's Big Cat weekend went down, announced his pledge a couple days after. He was supposed to visit Alabama that Sunday after Auburn's Big Cat. Didn't do it, but he continues to talk to Alabama, likes the way that they're playing under this new coaching staff. And Derek Smith is a fluid recruitment, in my opinion. I could see some fireworks with that one. That's not me predicting that it's going to happen for sure, but I think Alabama's relevant for Derek Smith. And then Mason Dunn is from Tupelo, Mississippi, committed to Ole Miss. This is his second visit to Alabama this fall. The Tide have really ramped it up with Mason, and I think that one, like Ivan Taylor, is trending in a good direction, and I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama landed both on 300 defensive backs this cycle.
All right, a lot of names going to be on the sidelines for this one. Any other notable 2025 or 2026 recruits that you think will be on campus this weekend at Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely loaded list. Marshall Pritchett's a tight end committed to North Carolina. This will be his second time back in Tuscaloosa since he committed to the Tar Heels. Jaden Breaker's a LSU linebacker commit that Alabama's starting to turn it up for. He's taken his visit. Some of the top names in 2026 and 2027 will be there as well. Head to Bama Online, head to On3 for coverage of what's this massive weekend. And then make sure you watch our Recruit Reaction show on On3's YouTube channel, On3 Recruits YouTube channel. Saturday night, we break down the biggest visits. We break down the game. Will we be talking about Georgia? Will we be talking about Alabama following that game? Josh, who are you on the record for in this Alabama-Georgia game?
I'm taking Georgia in this one by 3. I got Georgia by a field goal in this one, but this is going to be the game that we feature on Recruit Reaction. We'll be live as soon as this one ends in prime time. We're going to talk all about this one along with all the other big matchups and big visits that take place. So Alabama fans right now, Georgia fans, tap in, talk to us, give us your score predictions below. We're going to be talking about it all night on Saturday. Let's head out to the Plains where Auburn has yet another home game early in the season, and we are talking Deuce Night because he is back on campus for what seems like the 12th time this season. But this time it's a little bit different. He's taking his official visit to Auburn. Now, Deuce Knight, committed to Notre Dame, has been on Flip Watch on this channel since early August. No movement on that commitment. Steve, what's the latest update as Deuce Knight gets ready for his official visit to Auburn?
Fourth game visit of the fall for Deuce Knight. He's a season ticket holder right now for the Auburn Tigers, coming back with his family for the official visit. He also attended Big Cat Weekend with his family at the end of July. I still think that Deuce Knight, the intel still is in the Auburn favor. But if he gets through this weekend and ends up visiting Notre Dame for the Stanford game, we'll see what ultimately ends up happening. I think you would then see Auburn really ramp it up with some other quarterbacks. Not to say that they would stop recruiting Deuce Knight, because that's the guy they covet and love at the position, but they need another talented quarterback in this class to come in and push that room. I already expect Auburn to go into the portal for a one-year guy after the season as it is, but they want a big-time quarterback in this class. And if it starts to seem like Deuce Knight is not going to be the guy, or it's up in the air if he's going to be the guy, I expect them to really turn it up for some quarterbacks shortly after this if Deuce Knight doesn't hop into the fold. Now, I think Deuce Knight continues to say all the right things behind the scenes to Auburn, Auburn's commits, Auburn's top targets. I think he continues to feel out what that situation would look like if he committed, who else would join the class. But Notre Dame continues to have dialogue with them. Expected back in a couple weeks when they host Stanford. Ole Miss remains a program that's pushing for Deuce Knight. And Ole Miss, they haven't really ramped it up yet for Deuce Knight or Caleb Cunningham, but I expect that to come at some point.
Kind of crazy that after Big Cat Weekend at the end of July, we've had Deuce Knight on Flip Watch to Auburn since then, and now here we are talking about entering the month of October, and he's still going back and forth. So, yeah, you're right. I think the longer this goes out, the better it is for Notre Dame. But Ole Miss is kind of the wild card because they're going to lie in the weeds until the very end. They don't care probably what Deuce Knight does between now and then. They just want to sign Deuce Knight at the end. So that's kind of Lane Kiffin's MO. Go hard at the end, try to make a late flip. All right. Another one that Auburn's trending for, and this happened recently coming out of the weekend, Texas offensive lineman Nelson McGuire. He is a former Minnesota commitment that put himself back on the market this summer, and he's had a lot of attention, but right now Auburn is the team that's trending for him. You feel good about that one?
I do. He was at Auburn last weekend, has a really good relationship with Coach Thornton, Aaron Petard. That staff sees the vision moving forward, feels comfortable around those coaches and in that program. They got to hold off Clemson. They got to hold off Vanderbilt. Texas A&M's taking a big swing. But as I talked to you this morning, I like Auburn's chances.
All right, Auburn fans, talk to us. How are you feeling about this Deuce Knight official visit? Is this the one that's going to get him to flip? Let us know. Comment section below. Let's head down to Orlando, where UCF is going to be hosting Colorado in the Bounce House, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and recruits are lined up outside waiting to get in already. Big names on campus. We'll start with edge Javian Hilson, the former FSU decommitment, put himself back on the market as Florida State got off to a rough start. Texas heavily involved, but Steve, you've always mentioned UCF with Javian Hilson, and this week the Cocoa Beach Edge will be in Orlando.
Yeah, I like where Texas stands for Javian Hilson. I think UCF is as big a threat as any program out there for the Longhorns. Really good relationship with the staff. UCF's 3-0. I think Gus Malzahn and company have showed some serious recruiting chops at times to win blue chip battles since they've arrived, and there's a ton of excitement around the program. Going to be a great atmosphere. We'll see how Javian Hilson and some of these other elite prospects get caught up in it. We talked earlier in the show about the blue chip elite list of prospects visiting Alabama. UCF's going to bring in over 100 recruits. Around 90 of them have an offer. This is going to be a fantastic recruiting weekend. Many of these guys committed elsewhere. Miami offensive line commit Max Buchanan, Florida running back commit Waltez Clark. He's been to UCF 4 or 5 times. Jesse Harold, edge rusher, committed to LSU. This is his second game of the year at UCF. So Gus Malzahn and company, they look to get the spatula out at some point this cycle. Javian Hilson, obviously the big name on campus. Lamar Brown's the highest ranked recruit, the number one lineman in the country in 2026. He's coming. Trevon Reed's been recruiting the heck out of him. Landon Duckworth's a quarterback in 2026, trending towards UCF. So it's going to be super exciting for them this weekend with Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter and company coming to town. And these recruits are coming in for the show.
Yeah, the black and gold versus the black and gold on the field. There's also going to be a lot of blue and white on the sidelines. That's because IMG is rolling up with their bus. There's going to be a whole bunch of IMG prospects there. Nathaniel Owusu Boateng, we talked about him a lot on this channel last week because he was at Michigan, this weekend UCF. I want to talk about, though, these wide receivers that are going to be on campus. Dallas Wilson, the 5-star from Tampa. Joshua Moore, the 4-star committed to UF, and Dallas Wilson committed to Oregon. But Joshua Moore from Pembroke Pines in South Florida. If UCF is going to make a play for either one of these guys, who do you see as the primary flip target?
I think both are long roads for UCF, but we'll see what happens. Dallas Wilson's popped up on visitor lists for Florida and Miami this year and didn't make it. So we'll see if he makes it to UCF. And then Joshua Moore saying all the right things about Florida. We're behind the scenes. I like the way that's starting to pick up for Miami. But this just shows you the direction of this UCF program. They're playing Power 4 football. They have the cachet and the coaching staff now to get in with some of these elite recruitments, and they're taking their swing and they're going after these guys. And some of the guys I mentioned at the top of the block here, they have a legitimate shot at as the season continues. And look, they're looking to be 4-0 against Deion Sanders, Colorado on Saturday. It's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere inside the bounce house. We'll see who gets caught up in it. Will it be 2027 running back E.J. Crowell, who UCF's in a great spot for?
Yeah, we will see. This is going to be a huge opportunity for either UCF or Colorado because whoever wins this game, like you said, is going to do it in front of hundreds of recruits that most of these programs have offered. So we'll see what happens. Steve, quick prediction. Who you taking, UCF or Colorado?
I got UCF at home in this game. I think that they're playing at a high level right now. But Colorado, if this game is close, Colorado has shown under Deion Sanders and company they can win those close games late. So UCF, I think they look to jump on them, grab the momentum, and maintain it through 4 quarters.
All right, I'm taking Colorado. I think the best player in college football, Travis Hunter, goes in there, does what he does, and they come out with a dub.
I agree with that.
All right, UCF fans, tap in, talk to us. Who is your top flip target? Are you guys excited for this game? If you're a Colorado fan or a UCF fan, what's your prediction? Let us know. All right, Steve, let's wrap up the show with none other than a Julian Lewis update. He is back at Southern Cal this weekend for the Wisconsin game. And also, Notre Dame has a big visit weekend. What's some of the intel you're hearing out of there? Just take us out.
Well, let's start with Julian Lewis, longtime USC commit, getting back out to Los Angeles this weekend. Again, the intel favors him sticking with the Trojans right now, but he continues to have dialogue with other programs. That's picking up with Auburn. So we'll see what happens with the Tigers and Deuce Knight this weekend. Indiana maintains regular communication with Julian Lewis from Tino Sunseri and that coaching staff. They're trying to get him up to Bloomington, him and a few of his teammates for the Michigan game later this fall. And then Colorado, he's been to Colorado 3 times this calendar year. They have big games against Cincinnati and Kansas State. Those are going to be big recruiting weekends for Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes. We'll see if Julian Lewis attends one of those games as well. And then Notre Dame, they have the nation's number 12 ranked recruiting class heading into the weekend. They have 2 of their top remaining targets in 2025. Isaiah Mizell is an explosive receiver from Orlando, Florida. He's committed to Arizona right now. He's going to take his official visit, averages 22 yards per catch over the last 2 seasons for Boone High School. He likes the kind of leader that Marcus Freeman is, the history of the school. He wants to see what an atmosphere is like at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's hosting Louisville, 2 top 20 teams. It's going to be a fantastic environment with the Golden Dome shining down. The leaves are starting to turn up here in Indiana. Touchdown Jesus, the whole shebang. It's going to be picturesque in South Bend, and they're hoping that makes a big impression on Mizell. And on 300 linebacker Madden Faramo out of San Diego, J. Sarah Catholic. My on 3 RPM is on the Irish for Madden Faramo. Now, there's some serious competition. USC, are they going to get greedy at linebacker, take another one? If they do, they'll have a great shot at Madden Faramo. Texas is in there. Washington is in there. But I like where Notre Dame stands. He's coming back for an official visit, he's coming back for another visit to South Bend, and they'll want to impress there. They'll have a lot of their recruits around him: Jadon Blair, Dallas Golden, Brandon Logan, quarterback Noah Grubbs in 2026 is coming back. So exciting weekends at Alabama, exciting weekend at Notre Dame, exciting weekend at UCF, Penn State. We'll break it all down next Monday on the next episode of Wiltfong Whip Around. So please hit like and subscribe to the On 3 Recruits channel so you're up to date on when these shows are dropping. The 5-Star Flex with Phillip Dukes, the Inside Scoop with Josh Newberg, our recruit reaction show coming to you every Saturday following the biggest games in college football. And then again, the Wiltfong Whip Around on Mondays and Thursdays. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys soon on the On 3 Recruits channel.